The night Aisha realized she wasn't alone in her apartment began like any other. She lived on the 5th floor of a quiet building. Quiet in the wrong ways. Too few residents. Too many empty units. The kind of place where lights flickered for no reason and footsteps echoed longer than they should. She had moved there for peace, for privacy. And ironically, that was exactly what she would never regain. That night, she worked late on her laptop, the pale light of the screen illuminating her tired eyes. Outside, the city was unusually silent, as if the streets themselves were holding their breath. At 2:13 a.m., she stood up to stretch. When she turned off her desk lamp, the glass balcony door reflected her dimly lit living room. Except in the reflection, something shifted. Faint outline. Smudge. A shape that hadn't been there before. She blinked back. Her breath froze. She whipped around toward the balcony, but the glass was empty. Only the curtains swayed slightly, though the windows were fully closed. Aisha told herself she was tired, hallucinating shadows. But when she returned to her room, her phone lit up with a notification she didn't expect. New device linked to your webcam. She hadn't linked anything. Her pulse spiked. She opened the webcam history. The logs showed activity at times she wasn't even home. Recordings captured while she was out working double shifts. Recordings of her sleeping. Recordings of her cooking. Recordings of her stepping out of the shower. Every file was labeled the same way. Watching Aishan 01. Watching Aishan 02. Watching Aishan 03. Dozens of them. Her breath was shaking now as she unplugged the camera and taped it over. She sat against the wall, hugging her knees, trying to breathe. At 3:01 a.m., her phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. No name. No profile picture. You look better with your hair down. Her hair was tied up right now. Her skin crawled. She checked every window, every room, every lock. Everything was sealed. The only place anyone could be was the hallway. She grabbed a kitchen knife and crept toward her front door. She looked through the peephole. A man stood outside her apartment, pressed against the door, his eye staring straight into the peephole, into her eye. He whispered something she could hear through the tiny hole. Open up. He stumbled back. The knife clattered to the ground. The doorknob rattled violently. He was trying to enter. Aisha called the police, but by the time they arrived, the hallway was empty. They checked the cameras. Every hallway camera had been disconnected. Except one. The last surviving feed showed the man standing outside Aisha's door, staring directly into the camera, and smiling. He held a USB drive. He waved it as if taunting the viewer. Then he mouthed something the officers couldn't hear. But Aisha could read it instantly. I'm still watching. She moved out the next morning. But every few months, she receives a text from that same number. No words. Just videos of herself taken through windows she didn't know she had left uncurtained. Daniel lived in a farmhouse far from the noise of town, the kind of isolation people envy until they experience it. Fields stretching for acres, no neighbors, no passing cars, no streetlights. Perfect place for peace. Perfect place for a predator. One cold night in November, Daniel stepped outside to lock the barn after feeding the animals. As he crossed the yard, he felt a strange heaviness, like someone was staring at him. He scanned the tree line, seeing nothing but darkness. Still, the sensation clung to him like a damp weight. Inside the barn, the animals were restless. His dog growled toward the far wall, tail low, trembling. The horses paced nervously, eyes wide and reflecting the dim light. Something out there had them terrified. Daniel heard a rustle outside, then the soft crunch of snow. A step. Not animal. Too heavy. Too intentional. He turned off the lantern and stood in darkness, waiting, listening. Another crunch. Closer now. In a voice. A whisper so faint it could have been the wind, yet unmistakably human. Daniel! His blood ran cold. He stepped out, shining his flashlight toward the trees. There, between the trunks, a tall figure stood motionless, watching. The beam of the light hit its face, and Daniel felt his stomach drop. Masked, emotionless, featureless except for 2 holes where the eyes should be. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch. It only tilted its head slowly, like studying him. Daniel ran back to the house and locked every door and window. He watched from the kitchen window. The figure walked into the open yard now, stepping out of the shadows. Even from a distance, Daniel felt the weight of its stare. It raised its hand, waved, then pointed at the house. He called the police. 2 officers arrived after nearly 40 minutes. When they searched, they found footprints circling the entire house. But no intruder. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Or the next. A week later his dog disappeared. Then the scratching started. Every night at 2:46 a.m., the same sound scraped against his bedroom window. Low. Deliberate. The sound of someone dragging metal across the glass. He never opened the curtains to look. One morning, after a night of relentless scraping, he found a carving in the frost on his window. "Why don't you look at me?" Daniel sold the farmhouse and moved to the city. He thought he was safe. He was wrong. 2 months after relocating, he received a package at his new apartment. No return address. Inside was his dog's collar and a white mask. Rania worked the night shift at a call center. The building was old, with long empty hallways and a basement that hadn't been used in years but always smelled like wet concrete and something darker. One night, she left work at 3:10 a.m. She stepped into the parking lot, pulling her coat tight. The lamps were dim, flickering overhead, casting slow-moving shadows. As she approached her motorcycle, she felt her heart drop. Someone was standing behind it. Man. Dressed in black. Staring at her. She froze. He didn't move. She cleared her throat, trying to sound brave. "Are you okay?" He didn't respond. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe loudly enough for her to hear. She slowly backed toward the building door, but then her phone buzzed. Message. From an unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. Live photo. Of her. Taken 3 seconds earlier. The man was still standing in front of her. But in the photo, he was closer. Much closer. Smiling directly into the camera. Rania's legs went weak. She turned and sprinted back inside. She rushed to the elevator, slamming the button repeatedly. The hallway behind her was empty, but she felt footsteps approaching. Precise. The elevator doors opened just in time. As they slid shut, she glimpsed the man turning the corner. He was no longer walking. He was running. The doors sealed. She collapsed against the wall. Her hands shook uncontrollably. When she reached the top floor, she ran into her office and locked the door. Her coworkers were gone. The floor was silent, with only the hum of old lights overhead. Her phone vibrated again. A new photo. Picture of her office door. Taken from outside. Then a second message. "Let me in." Tears blurred her vision as she backed away from the door. The handle turned. Slowly, roughly, like someone testing how far it would go. She grabbed a heavy chair and wedged it under the knob. Her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear anything else. The handle stopped moving. Silence. She waited for hours until sunrise. When she finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. Except for a single object placed on the floor. Her motorcycle key. Tapped to a note. 2 words, written in neat block letters. Tomorrow night. She quit her job that same day. But every night at 3:10 a.m. her phone buzzes. Always with a message. Always with a live photo. Always taken from just a few feet behind her. Imran spent most nights gaming in his bedroom, headphones on, window cracked open for cool air. His street was quiet, peaceful, predictable. Until a new neighbor moved into the abandoned house across from his. A man who never turned on lights. Who always seemed to be awake. And who spent most nights standing at his window, staring directly at Imran's room. First Imran ignored it. Maybe the guy was strange, maybe lonely. But one night, Imran noticed something unsettling. The man was mimicking him. If Imran scratched his head, the man scratched his head. If Imran leaned back, the man leaned back. If Imran raised his hand, the man raised his hand. Perfect mirror. Except the man never smiled. Never blinked. Never broke eye contact. Imran closed the blinds. 2 minutes later, a knock at the door. Rhythmic. 3 taps. He froze. Everyone in the house was asleep. No one should be at the door. The knocking continued. 3 taps. 3 taps again. He crept to the peephole. His breath stopped. The neighbor stood there. But his body was wrong. His limbs were too long. His posture unnatural, twisted slightly, like he was forcing himself to stand in a shape he wasn't built for. Imran stepped back slowly. Another knock, this time at his bedroom window. He turned horrified. His blinds were shaking. Someone was pressing their face against the glass from outside. He forced himself to lift a corner of the blinds. The face staring at him wasn't human anymore. The mouth stretched too wide. The eyes too deep. Skin pulled tight like a mask made of flesh. The creature whispered something that vibrated through the window. I only copy what I see. It pressed its hand against the glass, and the window began to crack. Imran bolted for the stairs, yelling for his father. But when they rushed outside with flashlights, the neighbor's house was dark. The police entered the home. No furniture. No electricity. No signs of recent occupation. Except one thing. Hundreds of photographs covering the walls. All of Imran. Taken from outside his window. Every night. Every angle. The last photo was different. A picture of Imran sleeping. Taken from inside his room.